So, welcome to the Women in Sales Leadership Podcast. I have a very special guest today. I'm super excited about her, and I think you are going to be as well. So, we today have Alli rizacos. Why don't we, though, spend a minute, Alli? We'll tell everybody who you are. You share a little bit about yourself and what you do since you've left Salesforce.
Yeah, exactly. So I was at Salesforce. Yeah, so my background is in sales, and I spent 8 years at Salesforce in Toronto, in the Toronto office, which is a quite a special office at the time. We had quite a unique culture in comparison to some of the other offices. We had this whole theory that, well, first of all, Benioff has never come to the Toronto office, so we had this a little bit of a chip on our shoulder, and so we tried to be better than everyone because of that. Anyways,
What's you got against
oh, the
Toronto?
stories were crazy. Oh, he has a DUI and or some kind of he's a criminal in some kind of way, can't be let into Canada. I'm not even kidding. Like, we had all these
No.
theories. It
It
was
does
so funny.
that tracks though. That's quite possible.
It's quite possible because they really don't. I remember I tried to go to a Chris Brown concert once and they wouldn't let him into Canada because he had, all these charges against him. And I was like, well, guess I'm not going to the Chris Brown concert.
For being such a friendly country, y'all sure are strict about who you let
We
in.
try to keep it nice here. We want to keep it secluded from the criminals, apparently. But
Even
yeah,
the minor ones.
I still don't think Benioff's ever been. And we had everyone else, we had Keith
Mhm.
Block and all the other people, but he never came. And we were like, what's happening? Anyways, but I come from sales. I was in sales leadership for a long time as well. That's kind of my last 5 years of corporate I spent in sales leadership. I also did a stint in enablement. You did a stint in enablement too, right?
I
Or
was
no?
never an enablement.
Okay.
I took a left turn at Albuquerque into partnerships at one
Okay.
point, but that was
Right.
like at a different company. And
Sure.
yeah, it was like this moment where I thought I didn't want to be in sales.
Don't everyone has to go through that moment. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I like got out of sales and I was just like, what the hell did I just
Yes.
do?
I hated enablement. I hated
Yeah,
it.
I love enablement people, right? Like,
For
I
sure.
love
God
you,
bless
but
them.
wasn't for me.
Not for me. Yeah, it was not for me. I need to be front and center, you know? I need to be
On.
on the front lines. Yeah. So, anyways, long story short, I found coaching when I was at Salesforce because I think most people go through a little bit of an existential crisis when they're at Salesforce because everyone is so talented and you're like, what am I doing here? They made a huge mistake. I was never meant to have this role and job here. And so I was going through that crisis quite early on and I found a coach and it was the same thing. I was like, I don't think sales is for me. I'm not meant for sales. And so I found a coach to help me figure out what other path is meant for me, like my purpose. And well, what ended up happening was I was like, oh, coaching is the thing that I've always is my thing. And that is not just oh, I liked the experience. Even as a kid growing up, I was obsessed with psychology. I was obsessed with human behavior. I was a shy kid, so I was always observing people and analyzing them in my brain. And I would even watch I'd sneak into my mom's room and I would watch Melrose Place with her. And I was 8 and I'd be like, he likes her, but he's not telling her. And I would give this commentary about the relationships that were happening. Anyways, that was always my thing. And which was a natural, that's why sales kind of came naturally to me too. It's all relationships, it's all connection to humans, and it's all psychology. And so, but when I found coaching, I was like, wait, but I could just help people instead of having to sell them stuff. I can just help them. And so, anyways, I fell in love and I was like, for sure, coaching is my thing. But I was also deathly afraid of starting a business, leaving the comforts of Salesforce, all that kind of good stuff. So it took me about 8 years to finally muster up the strength and get over my imposter syndrome and all that kind of good stuff. So in 2021, in the kind of depths of the pandemic, I quit the corporate world. I wasn't at Salesforce at the time. I had left to another company, but I quit and kind of dove right into my coaching business, which had always been my dream.
Yeah.
And I started with imposter syndrome coaching because I had experienced so much imposter syndrome during my time at Salesforce and even in the role in between Salesforce and my company, oh my God, so much imposter syndrome. And I just knew that every time I talked about it, everyone resonated with it. And I was like, okay, this is going to be a slam dunk because everyone feels this way. And I positioned my brand specifically for sales leaders because, especially as a sales leader, I mean, we've all felt it, right? You were a good rep and then you become a sales leader and you're like, now I need to be perfect and know everything and not make any mistakes. And that's obviously unrealistic. And so you feel like a huge imposter because 99% of the time you're like, I have no idea. I have no idea what's happening. I don't know what to tell you. And I'm winging this whole thing, right? And so I knew that that was going to resonate a lot, and it did. So I built an entire brand around imposter syndrome, all while leveraging LinkedIn to build my coaching business. So I don't do ads, I don't do Instagram. Like LinkedIn is my only platform. It's the only way that I get clients. And so I did that for 3 years. And what started to happen because I was working with sales leaders was they started to see, how much success I was having on LinkedIn running my coaching business and traveling the world and, living in different places. And they were like, I mean, I'll have what you're having, like, how do I do that? Right.
For sure. Yeah.
And so they started asking me to help them build their own coaching business. And so, like, one asked, then two asked, then three. It was like, then eight of my clients, my previous clients had asked. And I was like, well, this is interesting. This was,
Hmm.
I was, my intention was never to be like some LinkedIn guru. I don't consider myself a LinkedIn guru anyways, but like, never a LinkedIn influencer or guru in any kind of way. But literally my clients were like, teach me. And I'm like, well, sure, I'll teach you what I know. And at first I had no idea if it was going to work. So I just like talked, I did it kind of behind the scenes with them. Let's try this out, no guarantees. I have not tested this on anyone else, like this is just what works for me. And, the first client made 25K in 3 months. Next client got her first 8 clients ever. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I think this works. This is repeatable. And
Yeah.
so I did that for about 8 months in the background while I was still publicly the imposter syndrome coach. I was doing all this, business coaching in the background. And then December 2023, I kind of was like, okay, like I gotta pick a lane here, like you can't do both. Like it's too confusing, right? And so, yeah, December 2023, I was like, all right, I'm going all in on the LinkedIn thing because I just noticed that like people were DMing me more and more about it too. Even though I wasn't, talking specifically about LinkedIn on LinkedIn, but they saw my success as a coach. So they started asking me about, okay, so what did you do? And I'm thinking about that too. And I'm like, okay, I got to read the room here. If people are asking for this, then like follow the market, right?
Mhm.
So I made the pivot in December 2023. And it was like such a helpful experience because everyone, I think, and I'd love to hear your version of this, but we all fear the starting over, right? Oh my God, I can't quit this job. I have to start over. I can't pivot my business. I'm going to start like who doesn't fear the start over, right?
Yeah.
And you have no idea what it's going to be like. It could be a complete start over. It could go really smoothly like but you're obviously your worst case scenario is always the one that you're kind of clinging on to. And so I literally shifted overnight. Like it was like Friday, I decided to change. Saturday and Sunday, I spent the weekend changing my LinkedIn, changing my website, and then started kind of new content angles on that Monday and like just praying, that it was going to work. And it was a crazy thing. And I learned the power of personal branding because people just immediately took to it. Like immediately they believed me. Immediately they wanted to work with me, right? Like that December was the biggest revenue month I had had to date in my business. And I'm like, what? Like I really thought this was starting over. I was freaking terrified to do it. I was
Mhm.
humming and hawing. You wouldn't believe like the people in my personal life, God bless them, because I was, every second of the day asking them, what do they think? And what about this? And blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh my freaking God, just either do it or shut up.
Totally.
And so, yeah, I really learned the power of personal branding. And now it makes me not afraid to ever pivot again or try something new or start over or whatever it is, because it's like you're never starting from zero. And it's true even in the corporate world. Like you're never starting from zero. You don't go back to the bottom if you leave the company that you're at?
Well, let's talk about that because you've done all this work with imposter syndrome. You've faced that down for yourself. You've done a start over inside your own business. What's the unlearn? What lesson or belief did you really have to let go of to do that, to break free from your own Imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
Alli,
Yeah,
because
of
that's what
course.
I just heard you like talk about.
100%. And like
Yeah,
imagine how embarrassed I was. I was like, "Oh my God, I have imposter syndrome and I'm the imposter syndrome."
no one is immune,
Of
so
course.
it's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what did I have to unlearn? Is that the question?
Yeah, what did you have to unlearn to really like step into being just confident? Like now you've done this big pivot. What did you have to let go of or unlearn?
I think the biggest thing, and I think most coaches face this, again, I'm curious if you face it too, but as a coach, it's same as a leader, right? It's the same kind of thing because you're in this kind of position of power to some degree, right? And the thing that I'm still trying, like I'm still learning how to let this go, but it's being perfect, right? As a
Mm,
coach, you think I need to be perfect. If people are going to buy from me, like I have to be this perfect specimen. Nothing ever goes wrong. I always handle every situation with grace and, whatever, right? All these isms and things that we have in our head about what we're meant to be. And so the fear of the starting over is like kind of like admitting failure, like admitting something wasn't working or admitting like whatever, like, you wanted to change. You like weren't as in love with it anymore when 6 months ago you said you loved it, right? This kind of like, I take it back kind of
like,
feeling.
God forbid we're allowed to change,
That's right. That's right.
right?
Right. And so the fear is that you have to show that you're not perfect. And what will people think and feel about you if that's true? Right.
Mm,
And what I've learn and I have to keep learning, right? Because I'm going to pivot again. I'm going
yeah.
to do something new, it's going to happen, right? Trust me, I'm not going to be a LinkedIn coach for the rest of my life. That's for sure. I can promise you that. That one I know. But
Yeah.
I think
I hear
anyone
you.
could go crazy because it's just like the algorithm change. Anyways, please.
We're going to talk about that in a second.
Exactly, right? But yeah, I always have to remind myself of like, it is the imperfections that actually people love the most, right?
Yes.
As hard as it is for
Yes.
for us to believe. And I mean, I have like gajillions of proof points of that because I typically write about vulnerable stuff. I typically write about my failures, right? But you kind of write about the failures that you've already accepted about yourself
Yeah.
versus the ones that you're kind of going through at the moment that you maybe aren't yet in acceptance of.
You're making me feel like I need to call my therapist
Yeah,
like after the session.
I hope everyone does after this. But yeah, like when you're in it, when you're going through it in that moment, right? It's like hard to show the imperfections because we're afraid that everyone's, like especially, myself, I'll just say it personally. It's like being the imposter syndrome coach, like God forbid I have imposter syndrome, like God forbid I
Mm,
fear anything, right? And it's like it's almost because it could become its own prison because it's like,
yeah.
well, excuse me, like I'm still a human. I by no means when I was doing the imposter syndrome thing did I say I'm gonna cure you of imposter syndrome. That's not the point, right? The
Hmm.
point is how to understand what it's teaching us, how to understand what there is still left to learn, right? What there is still left to let go of, what there is
Yeah.
still left to surrender to, right?
Yeah.
But of course, when you're kind of like in the public eye, when you create content, the fear is always like some bozo that's gonna call you out, and try to make you look stupid. And I tell my clients this all the time because I'm like, the only bozo is the person trying to make you look stupid, not you. Like anyone that tries to tear someone down, they are just tearing themselves down because no one is going to look at the person that they're pointing the finger at and being like, yeah, that person sucks. Everyone's going to be like, what's your problem? Why are you trying to tear someone down? Right? Like you're the person that clearly has the problem here, not the one that you're trying to tear down, right? So it's all so irrational because when you actually talk it out loud and you talk to a friend about it, like none of it is true. And even if it happened, none of it would kill you or ruin your brand or anything like that. But we're human and we still have natural fears that come up of like, and I think for me too, I don't know, you being a successful saleswoman too, it's like I have this like superwoman complex a little bit. I feel like I should be able to do it all,
Yeah.
and like should be able to like manage everything. And it's
Uh-huh.
really hard to admit that I sometimes can't.
Hey, I wanted to share something with you. I'm super excited about it. I'm hosting a masterclass for you, and the topic is going to be on elevating your career, getting yourself to the next level
It's totally free to join. It's going to be coming up in June. And for you, you have an opportunity to sign up to make sure you get on my early access list to join the masterclass. How do you get on the list? Really easy. There's going to be a link in the show notes wherever you're listening to or viewing this show from. So you can, number one, find the waitlist link, and you'll find the waitlist to masterclass link. Or if you're a LinkedIn person like I am, go find me on LinkedIn, Lynn Evans on linkedin.com. And you can find my waitlist link right there at the top of my profile. Easy, add your email address. It's simple. You'll get notified as soon as the masterclass is available. And I'm really excited to see you there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's so much good stuff there. I feel like so, you started with like starting over, and I have to share with you what's going through my mind is I'm like, oh my gosh, like for me in the past year and a half, like there's not an area of my life that I didn't start over in. Like every single thing. Career total change. Marriage ended and sold my house, moved, like kind of all of those like major things that happened. Thank goodness nobody has died. I'm so
Right.
thankful. I can, say that. But like every other big transformation has happened. And, one of the things that I've taken away from that is I'm really good at getting through that. And not that I was good the whole time because I was freaking out
Yeah.
often.
Yeah.
How
Thank God you said that
am I
because I
going
was
to
like,
do it?
what? You just sailed through that whole
No,
experience?
no, I didn't. No, I didn't. But getting through that is now something that I can look to on a tough day when I am crushing myself and saying, what the hell am I doing? And is it the right thing? And so's doing it better, or, all that comparison that you can so easily fall into.
Especially on social
Um,
media.
I'm like, well, and this is not me. This is I have a coach, right? I have a coach. My coach shared this with me. She says, so Amy, let's talk about the facts. Like, is your doubt really, is there any evidence that you have to back up like all these worst fears actually happening? Like, name a time when your whole life was a disaster and like you like failed at every single thing. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, I can't think of anything.
Right.
Well, I always got through. Everything's always worked out, right? But when you're embarking on these big journeys, these big transitions, you're jumping into the great unknown, that's that's hard stuff. And there's nobody who just looks at that and is like, no, not a big deal for me. Or maybe
Right.
they are and they're like just like took the super serum and,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, they've
Exactly.
got it all figured out.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you started to talk for a second about LinkedIn and the algorithm. I think one of the things that I'm noticing, like LinkedIn is like any platform, it's changing and it's changed a lot. But the thing that I notice is that there's a lot of people that are posting regularly, and they're oftentimes, folks who really do have businesses that are driven off of LinkedIn. I think one of the things that really blows me away is how few of the people that I know in corporate America who are sales leaders are regularly posting on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
What do you
Very.
what are the mistakes that you notice? Like you were sitting here thinking like, okay, if I were back at Salesforce and I wanted to be, in corporate selling for, a while, what would you change or do differently
Yeah.
as a
Oh yeah.
sales leader?
I didn't use LinkedIn at all when I was in the corporate world, other than basically telling people I got a promotion
Right.
or that Dreamforce is coming.
Dreamforce is coming, I got a promotion, or I'm hiring.
Or
Those
I'm
were my
like,
posts.
yes.
3 posts.
Yeah, that's it. Just rinse, recycle, repeat, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, it was such a different time when we were at Salesforce too, because I don't think it was as necessary at like then to do it
Mm,
because
okay.
layoffs
Say
weren't,
more.
well, layoffs weren't the norm.
Yeah.
I was, I mean, we were leaders. We knew what it took to fire someone. Like you had at least 90 days. It was like, well, we got to document this crap for 90 days.
You could end up there a lot longer than that too.
Right, exactly. So it's like I was like, I'm gonna get another, like if that ever happened, I'm gonna get another job. I'm gonna have notice, right? We live in such a different world now where it's like, sayonara, one
Mm,
email and
yeah.
you're kicked out of Org 62,
Yeah. Yeah.
You're kicked out of your company's, email, whatever, and it's gone, right? And that just wasn't the case at all when we were there, right? So but it is the case now. And I think that's the difference about why it is so much more important. Like, I won't sit here and be like, God, I wish I was writing on LinkedIn when I was a sales leader. I don't know if it would have, like, I'm sure there would have been benefits. I'm not saying that there wouldn't have.
Yeah.
I just don't think it was going to be as maybe astronomical as, or as important as it is now, right? With just the current economic situation, the layoffs, all that kind of good stuff, right? What I do wish I did, though, I do wish I did it because the other thing to think about, like I mentioned just moments ago about your personal brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's the greatest asset you'll ever own, right? Because when now thinking back, like I wish I was starting to just share my opinion, share my perspective on LinkedIn because I started from zero when I left the corporate world. And that, my first post on LinkedIn, other than the Dreamforce stuff, was like the day after I quit, basically, right? But I
Yeah.
wish I had started so that I could have obviously learned LinkedIn, and at least, gotten some reps in because I was really starting from writing very crappily in the beginning. I wish I went through that phase when I had like a secure landing. But, anyways, coming to today, why it's important. So, one is your personal brand, right? You're not going to work at that company for the rest of your life. No one is, right? Like, my dad, bless his heart, like basically retired from the company that he worked at my entire life, which was 30 plus years, right? So, I don't think that happens anymore, especially in tech sales. No chance is that happening. So, the company that you are at is not going to be the company that you end your career at, right? And so, one, you're going to have to get other jobs. And how do you do that other than just, the people in your network, right? Like, how can you expand the opportunities that are available to you beyond just your own network? Well, that's obviously building a personal brand, right? Building some kind of a voice that spreads wider than just the city you live in, for example, right? And, the people that you know within it. And so that's one. And then the second piece is there's also obviously quite an interest in building your own business, right? People want the freedom, people want the flexibility, and that is going to be exponentially harder if you don't have any kind of presence on LinkedIn, right? A lot of my clients obviously start from scratch, and it's not impossible, it just takes longer.
Yeah.
Truly, it just takes longer because your content sucks, right? Like, no one knows what the hell you're selling because you don't know what the hell you're selling, right? Like, all these different things, right? And so I think for those two reasons, and let me know if you have a third, I think it's so short-sighted to not be thinking about building some kind of a presence, especially on LinkedIn, which is obviously the best platform for your career, in my opinion, right? Yeah, because the times are changing, economy's different, and like at some point, even if you just want to do consulting on the side, right? Or be an advisor or whatever, like having an opinion and a perspective is going to help you do that.
Yeah. So I don't have another. I think the reasons that you said are spot on, right? Personal brand, or you begin to have more reach into extended network that maybe you didn't have before, and you never know where your next job is going to come from, quite frankly. When I think about every single career move I've made from different companies, and I've stayed places for an average of 3 to 5 years before I move on. But every time when I think back to every time I made those moves, I would put, when I knew I was ready to move, I'd put a ton of like energy into doing a lot
The
of the things
networking.
that you're supposed to do. And what was interesting about that was the opportunity would almost inevitably come from somewhere else.
Mm,
But it was an element of almost, Alli, when, in sales, where if you put the energy out there, you're like doing the right things, then all of a sudden, I'm gonna get a little hokey. I don't know. This, like, the universe shows up and like gives it to you, like a little manifestation, if you will. But none of it happens if you're not out there spending the energy and doing the work of outreach and personal branding. And the thing though when I talk to people who are in corporate and in sales, the thing that I keep encountering again and again is this like almost ingrained belief or attitude that their company owns them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, then we can talk about why people aren't doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, that
Yeah.
like they well and owns their what they say on LinkedIn, right? And
Hmm.
they have to be very careful about what they say on LinkedIn, right? Which I think is like such a red flag if you feel that way. Like,
Yeah, right?
where do you work, you know? And should you keep working there, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, so it's the fear of like, yeah, the company and what are they gonna say? First of all, uh, I think people I always tell, it's like you don't have to say that you hate your job and that's everyone, like we're not saying that, right?
We're not taking all the dirty laundry and putting it out for people
Right. Like that's
right
not,
away.
yeah, exactly. Like that's not what anyone is saying to do, right? But I have a client who and I don't know if this is for a fact. I'm kind of assuming this, but
Yeah.
he's a sales leader, and so he just started sharing like things that were happening day to day on his
Hmm.
team and in his sales world, like he was in an interview, and so he like talked about some of the questions that the candidate asked, and like what were great, what were misses, whatever, just like because it's valuable information for people on LinkedIn that are always looking for jobs, right? And just anyways, just like random stuff about his team and sales and that sort of thing. And anyways, he just got like a really big job, and I can almost guarantee that it's probably because he was posting on LinkedIn and just perspective on sales and perspective on like the state of sales and what's going on kind of in that world, right? Again, I don't know if that's true, but I have a funny suspicion that it's likely because of his posting.
Look, I would imagine if he was that those kind of like authority type of, and authentic, right? Authentic authority, authentic sharing in the spirit of, hey, I'm just trying to help other sales leaders, or I'm just trying to help people who are trying to interview for jobs do better, then that elevates the other people who are watching you, reading you, listening to you, and you begin to just be seen in a different way. Because one of the things that I think frequently happens, especially in companies like Salesforce, for example, and it's not the only place, the minute you're hired there, they almost forget anything you did before you worked there. And all that decade or however many years of experience you brought to the table and those learnings that you had are forgotten about. And it becomes a what have you done for me lately
Right.
moment.
Right.
And the voice that you can provide for yourself on LinkedIn really can allow you to repackage yourself
Right.
in
Yep.
that way of, here's what I really do know, and
Hmm.
and share, not in a, there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. I'd love to hear you talk about that distinction. Like what's a right way and a wrong way? Like if somebody's listening here and they're thinking like, okay, gosh, I really want to try to start to get more, activity going on LinkedIn. What are the things that you think they ought to definitely do and definitely stay away from?
Yeah. So my philosophy with posting has always been about sharing personal stories. And again, it doesn't have to be your dirty laundry or like some deep dark secret, right? But just, for example, like let's say you had to deliver performance review and you were really nervous about it, or you felt uncomfortable, whatever it is, right? Just like,
Mm,
and then what you learned from it, right? So the reason why personal stories are powerful is because when you do it right, there's a lesson that you're sharing with others, right? Of like, I went through this experience and here's what I learned from it. I'm offering that as something that you could potentially take and learn from as well, right?
yeah.
And the biggest thing is that the reason why that works is because we are exist as humans because of stories, right? The Bible is a story, like everything is a story. Like our histories are stories, right? Like we are still on this earth because of stories. So we are so programmed to resonate with stories, right? So the
Hmm.
second someone's like, I literally tell people the hook, your first line of your LinkedIn post is called the hook. And if you use I or my in the hook, you are way more likely to get someone to read that
Yeah.
right? Or sorry, that post, I should say. Because automatically their brain is like, oh, this is going to be a story. And brains like
Hmm.
stories. So I'm
Yeah.
already more interested. Versus if it's like, here's 10 things you should be doing about this. And it's like, thank you for yelling at me. I did not come to this platform today to be told how I'm wrong about everything. So there's like the personal story content, which I highly recommend and favor. And then there's like the how-to content,
Yeah.
whatever, like how to prospect into an enterprise sales company. Like of course that content can work, but it only works once you've built trust. And you only can build trust through personal story content, right? And a how-to piece of content doesn't build any trust, right? Because it kind of just sounds like you're talking down to me and that you're better than me and that you know everything. Listen, if you're a CEO of and people, kind of follow, like, you have this brand because you're a CEO, yes, maybe your how-to content would work better because people like look up, there's like a status thing that happens with like, oh, you're a CEO, you must know things that I don't know. But if you're just like, one of us, a sales leader, like many other sales leaders, it's like,
Mm.
be a bit more humble, right? Like you don't know more than someone else, right? And just like tell your own personal experience, offer a lesson. If they want to take it, they can. If they don't have to, right? But when we do that how-to content, it really feels like a bit condescending sometimes.
Gosh, oh my gosh. Well, I know you know so much. You know so much about this. And it's so cool to hear you talk about it. Even that one moment alone, like, gosh, you're so right. You think about stories. I mean, that's how we were taught to sell,
Of course.
was with
Yeah,
stories.
that's it.
Why would this be any different, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I want to go back for a second. Like when you took off and did your own thing, you were able to travel quite a bit while you were working.
Hmm. Yeah. Yes.
I
It
want to,
was it was also the pandemic,
yeah.
so like no one was traveling, so it was very cheap to travel as well. It was amazing. And it was cold. I'm from Canada, so it was like cold here. And when you don't have a job that keeps you in a certain city, you're kind of like, why do I live in this city? Yeah.
Yeah,
Like it
it's really,
really throws everything for a loop because
yeah.
I never thought about living anywhere else because, I worked at Salesforce Toronto and all my friends were in Toronto and, that was like where my life was. And then once you leave that community and that cocoon, you're like, I don't need to be here at all. There's no one that is relying on me here. Like, I don't need to show up anywhere in this city. And so, yeah, we started to travel right away. We did the things that you needed to do in order to travel, right?
Yeah.
Vaccinations or whatever to do it. But then, yeah, we went to Hawaii, we went to Costa Rica, Florida. Like, we got a dog in between. So we ended up staying much more like US bound
Yeah.
versus like Europe and Asia because he's a big dog, so we couldn't travel with him as much. But basically always going south for the
Nice. I'm curious, did you have a favorite place that you liked more than
probably
any?
Costa Rica.
Yeah.
I went that was my first time really traveling alone. So I've done a lot of traveling, but not like I didn't do like the after university go to Europe backpack thing,
Mhm.
Well, I lived in Europe as a kid, so like it just didn't have that same like allure to do that.
Mm.
And I was too much of a hyperachiever. I wanted to just start working and making money. And anyways, that was silly. So yeah, I didn't do that. So I never really did the like alone travel thing. So once I quit my job and my partner was working at Salesforce at the time too, and I think he quit like a few months later, but I was like, I wanted him to come with me, but he was coming humming and hawing, and I'm like, okay, I am going. And if you would like to come, you can come, but like I am going, And he's like,
I
okay, go.
like that.
Yeah. And so I literally packed, like did the backpack thing and in Costa Rica for 3 months. He came by the end, but like for the first 2 months I was there on my own and like, oh, such a like, I mean, so it's so difficult to be alone, especially when
Yes.
like you come from working at Salesforce with all these people, managing a team. Like I was always with people all the time,
Yes.
right?
Meetings all day long, every day,
Yep.
nonstop. I
Yep.
get it.
And then even when you travel for, when you went to territory and you traveled for work, like you were still with people, like you were always with people. And then I was like, oh, I'm alone. Oh my God. And it's exciting. And then you're afraid because you're like, I don't know anyone. How do you make friends? Like, what do I do? Right. But I also find that thankful, like I'm an introvert, but I can turn on my extroversion. And
Same.
I also find that when I'm alone, I'm actually more friendly to people because I have a need to
Yeah.
be friendly to them.
Isn't that funny?
Right? Like, so I like got to my hotel, I got some tacos, and then I like went to the beach and I'm like, okay, well, time to start talking to humans because I don't know a freaking soul. And funny enough, there was like this group of 3 girls, and everyone goes to the beach at sunset, and we were just all watching the sunset, and I could hear that they were speaking English. So I was just like, hey, like, have you guys been here for a while? Anyways, one of the girls worked at Slack, which at the time was
Yeah. Wasn't
I was like,
acquired
oh,
yet.
this is so easy, like
Yeah.
we know each other, right? Type of thing.
Right.
And they were so nice, and they were like, oh, it's our last day, which I was like, well, that's a bummer because I just got here. But they were
Just found
like,
these 3 girls.
come over tonight. We're going to have a barbecue. We're going to go to the pool, la la la. And so total strangers, but they invited me, and I went over and like got to hang out with them all night and made new friends. And although they left the next day, like I was like, I'm going to be all right. This is going
Yeah.
to be, and
Wow.
it was just such a different, it was the definition of like living in a community because everyone there is basically, and it was the pandemic. So everyone there was basically a remote worker trying to, basically escape and live in paradise and work. And I was staying at a hostel at the time. I had my own private room and everything, but staying at a hostel at the time, which is very much like a community-based living, right? And I loved it because like every day you'd wake up and you'd see all of your friends at breakfast, and we'd be like, okay, what are we doing today? Like, what do you guys want to do? Let's go explore this. Let's go explore that. Versus when we're back kind of home, I live in a big city. Like I've been trying to see one of my good friends for like 2.5 months.
This is so freaking hard to make a plan with
For the
somebody
love
that
of
you
God.
know.
Exactly. For the love of God.
Just like, let me get out the astrology chart and see
Right.
if I can get,
Is Saturn
start.
in retrograde or whatever?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's up?
And I'm just like, and I hate that, it doesn't, yes, it's a friendship, but it doesn't make me feel like connected, and like we're like
Yeah.
in something together. By the way, thank God I got a dog because that's where I find the most community because you walk your dog every day, you go to the dog park every day. So you see the same people every day,
I
right?
know. And it's socially acceptable to stop people and like talk to them when they have a dog.
It's
It's somehow
incredible.
like suddenly there's this permission that says, talk to me
It's
by a dog
incredible.
on a leash.
I love it. I really love it because you do feel so much more connected to
Yeah.
everything because people, I mean, random strangers come to talk to me all the time. I will just talk to a random stranger because I have a dog too. Like it's just such a permission slip. But especially, and I say all this especially because when you leave the corporate world, you leave community behind,
Mhm.
right? And then when you're in the corporate world, especially like a place like Salesforce, where that was a massive community, like, almost cult like to some degree, not in a bad way, but like in a good way, right? I loved the cult. But then it's like, then you're on the outside.
Yeah.
And you haven't had the time to build your own community on the outside because it was all being fulfilled on the inside,
Yeah.
And so then you're like, ooh, who do I hang out with? And they were all still working there and 9 to 5 and, so it was really, it's always been for the past 4 years, has been a really big focus of mine about building community where I live because otherwise I'm just on Zoom calls all day. And that's tiring. And I want to feel connected to the place that I live in and the people that live in it. And yeah, that's hard. That's definitely the hardest part about entrepreneurship is like finding that community because you're alone all the time.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Alli, you said it. Like this went through my mind earlier. I used to look at networking events and I'd just be like, oh my God, please don't make me go to another networking event. Like I never wanted to go
Yeah.
to them.
Now I'm
Do you
all
know
in.
what? Now I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a networking event. I
Yeah.
can't wait. There's going to be people there
Yeah.
who are doing something similar or something exciting. And
Oh,
I
all the
get a
time.
chance to build community with all these entrepreneurs and business people in Atlanta, which is where I live. And it's just become something that I take so much joy and pleasure
100%.
in now
Yeah.
instead of this like, woe is me, I have to go meet new people.
Well, that's how I felt at Salesforce, right? I mean, like again, it's such a bubble. You never felt like you had to meet anyone else. You were like, we're good. We have everyone we need is in this bubble. And like I for the longest time didn't do any networking events while I was there. Just at the end when I was starting to realize, oh, I want to leave the corporate world at some point and like build something, I was like, maybe I should network and know some more people. But I mean, there's so many people that work at Salesforce. It is networking in itself, like even in
So
an
huge.
office of 1,000 people, you're like, I've never seen that person before. Who is that person? So
Easily.
you're kind of networking every day.
Precisely. Allie, you have been so generous in sharing you and your story and some really, really valuable advice, I think, about how to do a better job at taking advantage of your personal brand and really being in charge of your personal brand and how you project yourself and how that can make an impact. Share with my listeners a little bit about if they want to find you, if they want to take advantage of the things that you're doing.
Yep.
How would they find you?
Yeah, for sure. So I am on LinkedIn, of course. Imagine if I wasn't.
Right.
So LinkedIn's the place that I hang out the most. Everything that, like, I'm on other podcasts as well. I've got other like mini series that I've put out that are free, and all my resources are on LinkedIn. So yeah, LinkedIn is the place to find me for sure.
Beautiful. Well, Allie, what a pleasure it was to hang out with you for a few minutes today. I feel like you and I could talk a lot longer, but we unfortunately have to, end this conversation at some point because, nobody wants to listen to me talk for 2 hours anymore.
I don't think they want to listen to me either. So yeah.
Anyway, well, that was so fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course.